My story begins not at the beginning of this scrapbook, but at the very end.
My first connection with the Larchmont Lions Club when I was part of the contingent that went into service from Larchmont. And at that time, the Lions Club were there to participate in the send-off with the other town officials.
I had been attracted to the club because my father had served, although as a Rotarian, had served in a local service club, and I knew the value of that.
Oh, it was started by an insurance executive called Melvin Jones in 1926 in Chicago. And it was a businessman's club. They used to meet regularly and held conventions in Chicago, Dallas, and other places. But it's not until until 1925 that they invited Helen Keller as the keynote speaker for their annual convention. And there, Helen Keller challenged the Lions to be the Knights of the Blind in the crusade against darkness.
The whole thing was focused on improving Mamaroneck, improving Larchmont. And yes, the importance, we collected eyeglasses for the blind. We had boxes all over the village, which we emptied on a regular basis. We'd go to banks and stores that kept them, that collected the glasses for us. We worked on the Camp for the Blind, which was a wider thing. We were part of a national and international organization. But I think the reason that most of our members were there was because they felt that they were contributing to the village of Larchmont and the town of Mamaroneck.
There were any number of other projects that we conducted during my time, and one that I'm looking at the pages of the book now was the simple construction of a new bus shelter on Palmer Avenue. The bus shelter had gotten into deteriorated condition, and it was necessary to replace it, and the Larchmont Lions Club reached out to the town and said, you know what, we'll provide the funding for it. We happened to have an architect, Rene Simone, in the club at the time, and he designed it for us, and we arranged for the materials to be purchased.
We also built a shelter, I told you, for Blind Joe, and there are pictures here showing the progress of developing that. And that is still there. It's used by the town.
The gentleman there, Blind Joe, sold donuts and coffee and other product for those that were rushing to and from the train. With the help of the Larchmont Lions Club, we renovated the center and the pavilion rather, and used it as an information center. So for a period of time, we manned it with a town employee who would be there to answer questions about the town government. If you needed an application for a parking permit, or if you needed an application for a building permit, if you needed to know the schedule of recreation programs, the gentleman that was there mornings could provide that to you.
I remember standing there the day that it was dedicated. We were fortunate to have a great photographer by the name of Bill Russ, and he had some wonderful pictures put in here.
Later on, we began a program called Dine Around, and that was a program where we met with all of the restaurant owners in the village of Larchmont and in the unincorporated town and asked them to participate.
And we got restaurants to make an offer, $10 off on a meal or a glass of wine with your meal or whatever it may be. We formed it into a coupon book of the kind that you now get in the mail. So that meant the Lions went around to each of these restaurants, talked to the owners, got their permission, got their offer, and we made it into a book.
And we sold coupon books that were for different values, and that by far was one of the best fundraisers we ever held. We raised enough money, I think it was well over $30,000, to help replace the defibrillator machines that were used by the Larchmont Mamaroneck Volunteer Ambulance Corps.
I heard one of our participants talking about Pete Mosier. Pete was one of the great personalities we all knew in the Lions Club. And he was a big man, and he was a prominent lawyer in town. And we had a great deal of camaraderie together. And when he went blind, he still wanted to come to the club meetings.
Peter had diabetes, and he didn't take care of it and wasn't didn't. And he was going blind, and Jack Coughlin, who was a close friend, arranged a schedule for people to take Peter back and forth from his office, he was an attorney, to home.
I'd stand up at the Lions Club and I'd say, now if you want to know what's going on in Larchmont, if you want to know who's buying whose business or who's selling whose business, who's getting married, who's getting divorced, you want to take Pete and enjoy the conversations.
And the Lions provided that service for many years. And I mention it because it was a lovely job. I would pick Peter up, usually it was taking him home. And we never went directly home. We ended up sitting in the car debating and found out that we had many things in common. Sure, we disagreed on solutions, but we were talking to one another, we were listening to one another, and we were enjoying one another. And I think that that was something that I took away from the Lions, not just with Peter, with other people too.
And when we moved to here, I saw signs for Larchmont Lions Club, big signs saying we meet at Shore Club on Wednesday noon. So I went to Shore Club one Wednesday and saw a bunch of ex-Larchmont Lions Club members like Jack Coughlin and Henry Cohen and a few others. They were having lunch.
I had some good friends there, and we used to have a lot of fun. And it was some of the crazy things that the club did is when they went to install a new member, they would bring them in on a hand truck and blindfold them and ask them why they wanted to join the Lions Club and kid around with them and tease them a little bit before they got serious. The day that the president was elected, the new president bought a round of drinks, and that was something that they had to do every year, and otherwise there was never a lot of drinking at lunchtime.
We used to have a tail twister. Every Lions Club has a tail twister who has the job of fining members for doing things wrong, such as failing to wear a tie or failing to tie it properly or removing a jacket on a hot day before asking permission. Very serious things that people had done. And the work of the lion tamer, tail twister, I got that right, yeah, was fun. It was part of the whole association. Again, we became friends. There were people you knew were going to get fined. There were people who were, and I remember working as the tail twister several times. I remember my favorite one was when we had the district governor, along with a former district governor, one of our members, who knew everything about the Lions historically. And I finally asked them a question. I asked them if there were any Lions in the Baseball Hall of Fame. Do you remember that, Jack? They couldn't remember. They didn't know. And the answer was yes. It had nothing to do with the Lions organization, but there was a pitcher by the name of Ted Lyons in the Hall of Fame.
That night I got home and my mother said, You know, the ladies just thought your guys were the friendliest, most wonderful group in the world. And she said they really were nice people. And I started to laugh. And I said, Mom, yeah, maybe some of the drinks we were having in the kitchen carried over. But the club just had that fine spirit all the time.
My story begins not at the beginning of this scrapbook, this giant scrapbook, nor in the middle, but at the very end, the very last page. Because that last page is the bridge between our legacy club, which was founded in 1926, which unfortunately lost its charter in 2005. Now, my wife and I moved to Larchmont from Armonk in the same year, 2005. We need at least 20 members to get a Lions International Charter. We have to start with 20. So I drafted my wife, who was not a Lion in Armonk, and I met another past district governor from Long Island district. He also had moved to Larchmont, so he drafted his wife, so we were already 4, and we invited many merchants and the Lions who were there before, like Jack Coughlin, Henry Cohen, and the Amy Brelia, Dr. Irina Donay, Scott Sutton of the Raymond Opticians. So we were able to build 20, and then we kept the momentum going, and we had 33 members to start a new charter. With 33 new members, I believe in December 10, we recharged the club with the great paraphernalia at the Bonnie Briar Club. Last 5 to 6 years, the club has grown. We are about 40 members. Our goal is to reach 50 for the centennial year of the Lions. This is 2017 is 100 years of the Lions International.
What was so great was that there was such a focus on the town of Mamaroneck and the village of Larchmont. While the Lions Club had an obligation to the national and international organization, and we met that by putting out the boxes to collect old glasses, we focused so much on what was going on in the town of Mamaroneck and the village of Larchmont. And as I said, for me, that was just made my job as town administrator and being a member of the club, it made those two roles so very special to me.
I think we represented a time when the local community was a local community to itself. Maybe the best of times, at least for those of us now in our 80s and 90s.
I knew some of the older members when I first joined, and then now I sit here as one of the oldest members. It's been a fun life in that aspect of it. This book is probably as good as any organization has for history of a community organization.